After what most people are terming as a positive weekend against Chelsea, and yet some fans are managing to find negatives in a 2-1 win over a relatively decent Chelsea side, Liverpool head away to Leipzig in the Champions League just a couple of days after that. And there are a lot of things to unpack in this, but I'm going to start off with some of the injuries, and then I'll get into a bit of Leipzig, and then I'll get into which team I think Liverpool are going to field themselves. Obviously, Liverpool are going there without Alisson and Harvey Elliott, both of their long-term injuries, but they're also going without Jota, they're also going without Chiesa, they're also going without Bradley, which definitely means that there are a couple of certs to start on one side of the field, and Liverpool are also going to be trying to rotate throughout this period. But also, I think we need to talk about Liverpool's midfield. First of all, let's talk about Liverpool and that midfield. A lot of people with some criticism for Szoboszlai on the weekend, some praise for Jones, and weirdly, we've almost come to expect what it is that Gravenberch is doing now in this side, which I find very unusual. And I think McAllister's performance went a little bit under the radar. And I'm not quite sure why at this point. I think Slot's tweaking during the game, Slot's changes, the way that we marked Cole Palmer out of the game, the way that we stopped them from moving through our press as easily, even though early on they did manage to do that, definitely made a big difference this match and certainly made it a bit easier for Liverpool in their midfield. But also the tweaks that we made at half-time. Obviously, I think one of those tweaks was to make one of those 2-8s, or one of the two players that were getting forward, or that triangle that was moving around, slightly further forward, which in the end ended in the Curtis Jones goal, but also left a little bit of space behind him so that one of their midfielders could creep in and put that ball over the top for Nicholas Jackson. No side is going to be impervious. No side is going to be invincible. I don't think there is any team this season that looks invincible in the Premier League, and it's probably due to where the Premier League football is at, the tweaks that the managers make, the meta idea of, well, this team's going to start like this, so we're going to start like this, and then they're going to change to this, and then we're going to change to this. People are managing plays almost like in the NFL or the NBA, and you've got to think about 2 or 3 steps ahead. You have to think of solves and have those solves ready and have the players obviously trained ready for that. And that is where I think Liverpool have been a bit sharper, a little bit more agile in recent games, not only coming off the back of the Klopp era where players are quite well trained and very used to being well drilled, but also because Slot is imparting his ideas pretty quickly, and also the players are very good at applying them anyway, not only because they have great physical fitness, but also because they're very smart football players that Liverpool have bought in the first place anyway. And so that's why I don't really get the Szoboszlai criticism and the Curtis Jones criticism in other games and the McAllister criticism. These guys are all being asked to change their game quite significantly and not always in a way which plays into their strengths. Szoboszlai, I would say, obviously he's a great player. I think he was at a team, obviously, which was, very similar to the academy that Liverpool are going to be playing now in RB Leipzig, and that kind of system where they're coming through and they're playing like a style of football that could be applicable to so many different teams, but there is a high intensity, there is a high type of pressing there. There are sets of plays they go through. I think that's why Klopp was probably attracted to that as well. And I think overall what we're seeing now is, and I think what I'm interested in about this Leipzig game is how Liverpool play them. Leipzig have made a lot of upsets in the Champions League. They almost made one against Atletico when Sesko scored early there. They almost made one against Juve when Sesko also scored there, and a penalty as well. And not only did they go to 1-1, they also went to 2-1 up at one point. So it's not as if this side aren't used to undermining the opposition, especially big sides as well. Big sides were doing very well in their own league for Juve, but also relatively well for Atletico Madrid in their league as well. So, first of all, let's just not treat only sides who are the Leverkusens, the AC Milans, and the Real Madrids as the only big challenges in the Champions League. There's a reason they're in the Champions League. But there is also a reason that they've dropped away or that they haven't been able to sustain it for the whole games. Juve's quality in the end came through. So definitely individual moments of brilliance. Liverpool certainly have elements of that within their team. But then the same also goes for Atletico Madrid as well. And I think that one, don't quote me on this, was an away game for Leipzig. I just want to check that before I go quoting it. Yeah, Leipzig were away for that one. And even then, they scored very early on, putting Atletico Madrid on the back foot. The weird thing is, by the way, they have beaten some decent sides this season. I mean, if you look they beat Leverkusen. Plenty of other teams haven't beaten Leverkusen this year. They've more recently beaten Mainz. They also had a decent run in the league against Hindenheim, and they also beat Augsburg before the Juve result. But then they had a little dip just before that. So I'm not saying we're facing the strongest of Champions League sides that they could face here, but we are facing a side who I think are better than their place is in the Champions League. They're currently 29th out of a table of 36 teams, so obviously that's not a great reflection on them. But I don't fully think that the actual result is reflective of that. Liverpool, I think, will be braced for this. Liverpool, I still see that Liverpool are a little bit scarred or still use the Nottingham Forest result as motivation. No matter how well a game went, it seems to me as if this Liverpool team will reference the Forest game, and certainly Slot will reference the Forest game, because he'll always talk about how we didn't hit the ground running, how that was a surprise result for us, how that wasn't a result that we were looking for, how he's disappointed with the players' performances and that. He'll always attach lots of different narratives to that, and I think it's certainly worth acknowledging that. Having said that, Liverpool 5-1 at the moment in terms of scored and goals conceded, 2 for 2 in the Champions League. They find themselves 5th. I don't think we can really start to see how the table's shaping up for another couple of games, considering there are 7 teams on an absolutely flawless record of 2 games in a row, and City just sit behind that, Inter sitting behind that, Arsenal sitting behind that. You know, Liverpool certainly aren't out of the woods and won't be out of the woods for a while, and that's part of the changing format in the Champions League. You have to watch every other game and see who is doing well. Anyway, back to the Slot side of things. I think a lot of people at the moment are putting emphasis on I'd start Jones over Szoboszlai, or I'd start anyone over Szoboszlai, or I'll put McAllister in that deeper role. I actually really like the rotation of Szoboszlai and Jones. Different players, different attributes, asked to do very different things. Szoboszlai asked to push a little bit further down the field. Jones asked to sit a little bit more on the likes of Cole Palmer in this game. Both did a pretty good job of that, as far as I'm concerned. I think sometimes Szoboszlai can get a little bit caught up in the sauce, a little bit caught up in trying to progress the ball in like a bit more of a flashy way than a sure way. But there are also times where I've seen the other side of that, where he looks really solid. He looks like the kind of player that I want for energy, I want for application. And you can almost compare him to a Gini Wijnaldum type character, sacrificing a lot of his own game and not, you know, basically playing the game that he wants to play. Even though he's playing in a 10/8 style position, I think he's, you know, I just want to acknowledge that this isn't necessarily his preferred position, though I think plays into a lot of his strengths. I'd be interested to know what you guys think in the comments below. Anyway, Curtis Jones had a great game there. I still think that we need to rotate this midfield. I think if we're going to rotate anyone out, it's probably going to be Jones, because I think Jones still needed the pace of Szoboszlai. But I will say this, and I'll be interested to know what your thoughts are on this. Where are we gonna end up rotating someone? Do you think that we're gonna save Szoboszlai's running and industry for the weekend when we're gonna be up against Arsenal, who, granted, are without Odegaard, are without Saliba, both of them are gonna be out for this game, but will still have a really strong midfield with Rice, with Partey, possibly, and obviously, after the weekend, a great, I'd say, relatively good performance from Mourinho. He obviously didn't have the impact that they would have wanted, but I think he looked like the kind of player that I wouldn't want facing Liverpool. Are we going to go up against that kind of midfield, or are we going to be looking at the Leipzig performance and saying, well, what was it that pushed Leipzig over the edge? Was it the brilliance of Benjamin Sesko, or was it the performance of Seiwald and Haidara, and then obviously Benjamin Sesko sitting in that like 10 position? Or is it the fact that they're just a well-balanced team who play, you know, lots of really great plays and manage to, are clearly an analytics team who prey on the idea of Juve having some weaknesses that they can analyse and then exploit. I think it's probably close to that, to be honest. And I'd imagine they'll have looked at a lot of these. Could be an interesting turning point game, I think, for Liverpool in this match, where we're looking at the stats that Leipzig do a lot of their analysis through, the weaknesses that a lot of people would be picking through. And part of the reason that I think a lot of people will think that Klopp was attracted, should we say, to the Leipzig role will be because of the analysis, because of what they have infrastructure-wise, because of their pooling of all of their different stats and ideas and all these things globally, and the ideas that are being thrown around there. It's a leveling of the playing field for those guys. They don't necessarily have all the big names, but a lot of people have bought the big names from them in recent years. Of course, Liverpool have also got a couple of names over there as well. Golashi is one of them. He used to be a goalkeeper for Liverpool. There are other players who play for the opposite side of the coin for Salzburg as well. And I think overall, Liverpool trust them as a system. They'll be very aware of the way that Leipzig play. And there'll probably be a lot of Leipzig fans in the analysis team, not directly, but indirectly for Liverpool. So yes, I think we'll be well briefed, but I think we'll also be very reverent of where Leipzig are at. What team do I expect to start? Well, first of all, I'd obviously expect Keller to start in this one. Be interested to see if we threw Yaros in there. Maybe there's something in there. I mean, you know, he's got a more Central European sway, but he played in the Austrian league, not in the Bundesliga. But he's still, you know, I'd say that there might be an interesting shout there. I think we'll probably shout Keller up there. Trent, Konate, possibly a shout for someone like Kwanzaa, but let's see. Virgil van Dijk, and then I think we'll probably see Tsimikas start on that far side. I'll be interested to see. I think we might see Tsimikas there. I think we will. I think we will. And then I think in midfield we'll probably see Grav, Mac, and then ahead of that I think we might still see Curtis Jones. Jota obviously hasn't travelled, so I think we will see the likes of Darwin Núñez there. And then on one side we'll probably see Cody Gakpo. On the other side I think we'll probably see Salah. There's not really anyone to rotate out there without Chiesa and Jota. And then I think obviously Diaz gets a little cameo in there. Obviously it's disappointing that Chiesa's still injured. I think it's really the midfield we need to look at rotating, where the pressing is being done quite intensely. I think we really need to manage and guard Mo Salah out there as well. I think we'll see if Liverpool can get ahead early on, if they can manage this one, we will see them subbing the likes of Mo Salah off, because the pressing in the last game was very intense for him. The getting up and down the field was extremely intense for him, even though he was playing a lot more of a deeper role. And I think Liverpool are being very cognizant of the fact that whilst they do have depth in that front line, we currently got Chiesa, Jota out in that front line, so there is only so much rotation we can do. And we know there is a big lot of games coming. Leverkusen to come after Arsenal. There are yet more games after that. Need I remind you of the difficult November that Liverpool have got ahead of them? I'm actually going to read it out to you here. So it goes Leipzig, Arsenal. Oh, Brighton twice, then Leverkusen. Then we have Aston Villa, then we have Southampton, then we have Real Madrid, Man City, then just before my birthday we have Newcastle, then just after my birthday we have Everton. We always seem to play Everton that time of the year, then Girona. It's a really difficult run of games. Really positive to see the players' reaction early on to the win. I think Van Dijk found just the right tone, talking about, this is exactly why you play at a big side, this is exactly why we're out there to compete. And I think the flip side of the coin is obviously it's a nervous time for us. We're still not quite sure how the cards fall, the chips may fall, if you like, with this Liverpool side. We still are a little bit nervous about squad depth and who might rotate in for the likes of Grav. Maybe there's an Endo appearance in a game like this. Maybe there is like a midfield shift and we might see like a Gravenberch Endo style in there. I'd be interested to see whether we can do that, whether we can apply that against this midfield. We definitely won't be doing that on the weekend against Arsenal. But some rotation has to happen. Someone's got to be fit somewhere. And I'd imagine that after Leipzig have been hitting teams early on, especially Atletico, and then you could even make that same argument for Juve, we will be trying to look at that counter-attack. We're probably one of the best counter-attacking, or at least counter-pressing sides in the world. Let's see what we can do with that. This is the first game of the season, I think, and I think we'll face a lot this month, but where we will see a side who will do small adaptations, broadly will play their way. And I think that's probably one of the best ways to play. A lot of coaches have tried to outthink Slot. A lot of coaches have tried to, shift and maneuver and work out, how can we undermine the system? I wonder if there's a side out there that just go at Liverpool, how that works. We might work them out quick. I think AC Milan did that. Didn't quite work out for them. But I think Leipzig are a step above AC Milan in terms of drills and plays and those kind of things, probably intensity as well, if I'm being frank. We'll see. Let me know in the comments below who you think is going to play where, and I'll see you guys, of course, tomorrow night for a review of the game. I'll chat to you there. Much love. Bye.